Imagine a young woman with piercing ice blue eyes, a porcelain doll face, and yet an enigmatic, almost haunting gaze. On the runway, she floated as if gravity had no claim on her, every glance and every pose etching itself into the memory of those who watched. This was Jessica Stam, the Canadian supermodel once hailed as the living doll of fashion. But behind that shimmering halo of glamour lay a life filled with unexpected turns. From an unknown small-town girl, Stam ascended to become an indispensable face on the world's most prestigious runways: Paris, Milan, New York. She graced countless magazine covers and served as the muse of legendary fashion houses like Dior, Valentino, and Dolce & Gabbana. Yet glory always carries a shadow. Jessica Stam not only experienced the blinding spotlight of success, but also the ruthless cruelty of an industry where a single misstep can extinguish an icon overnight. For many, she became one of the most unforgettable faces of her generation, forever associated with the era that bridged the rise of 90-second supermodels into the turbulent new millennium. Her story is not merely one of beauty and triumph. It is also a tale that echoes the dark side of fashion, of pressure, fragility, and the thin line between adoration and oblivion. Jessica Stam's journey stands as both a hymn to the catwalk and a haunting reminder of the cost of living life under relentless lights. Jessica Stam was born in 1,986 inches Kincardine, a quiet town on the shores of Lake Huron, Ontario, Canada. She was the youngest of 7 children in a strict Catholic family, growing up amid cornfields, snowy winters, and the rituals of small-town church life. Her parents never imagined that one of their daughters would one day enter the glittering, unpredictable world of high fashion, a universe so far removed from their modest, rural existence. From an early age, Jessica seemed different. She was quieter than the other children, often teased for being skinny, with a face some called too delicate. Yet that very delicacy set her apart. Teachers recalled a little girl with a silent intensity in her eyes, as though she carried a hidden world within. It was not the loud, confident kind of beauty, but something subtler, fragile, yet unforgettable. The insularity of Kincardine also shaped her deeply. Jessica loved the calm of her small community, but often felt like an outsider, as if she didn't fully belong. While others accepted the routines of small-town life, she secretly yearned for something beyond the parish, beyond the endless fields. That yearning was not yet defined, but it pulsed quietly beneath her surface, a hidden energy waiting for release. In retrospect, that contrast, the innocence of her rural upbringing versus her restless desire for something more, became the seed of her modeling allure. Jessica Stam's journey was never just about a beautiful face. It was about the tension between the ordinary and the extraordinary, a tension that would propel her far beyond the horizons of her small-town childhood. The turning point in Jessica Stam's life arrived on what seemed like an ordinary day. Still, just a teenager in rural Canada, she had no dreams of becoming a model. But fate intervened when renowned photographer Stephen Meisel came across her photo in a small contest. To him, her melancholic blue eyes held something rare, a fragile beauty with magnetic force. For Stam, being noticed by Meisel was like having a door suddenly swing open to an unknown world. Through his connections, she soon found herself at her first test shoots in New York City. Her family, deeply conservative and accustomed to the rhythms of small-town life, resisted strongly. Her mother worried that the fashion industry, with its temptations and shadows, would devour her youngest child. Yet Jessica, for the first time, felt she had a reason to step beyond the familiar boundaries of her upbringing. Her first casting in New York was unforgettable. She stood nervously among dozens of other stunning girls, self-doubt gnawing at her. But when the flashbulbs erupted, something transformed inside her. Her faraway gaze, porcelain skin, and icy poise caught the attention of casting directors. In that moment, She was no longer the quiet girl from Ontario. She was a vision, mysterious and unforgettable. Back in her hometown, reactions were less welcoming. Some in her community disapproved of a Catholic girl parading in revealing clothes, questioning whether she had betrayed her roots. Jessica felt torn, exhilarated by the newfound stage, yet guilty for defying the values she had grown up with. She confided in her diary that every runway walk felt like living two lives, one as the modest farm girl, the other as a high-fashion enigma. This inner conflict gave her a unique energy that audiences and photographers alike could sense. From that first audition, Jessica Stam was no longer an anonymous face in the crowd. The gates of fashion had swung wide, and she was swept into a current that would carry her further than she had ever imagined. Once the door to fashion opened, Jessica Stam's rise was nothing short of meteoric. After those early sessions with Stephen Meisel, her face began appearing on the covers of major magazines. It wasn't just a career step. It was a leap that transformed a small-town Canadian girl into one of the defining symbols of the 2000s fashion scene, a period that bridged the legacy of the 90-second supermodels with the new generation. What made Stam irresistible was her peculiar beauty: ice, blue eyes that seemed to hide secrets, a doll-like face tinged with melancholy, and a detached aura that left audiences spellbound. Designers and photographers alike saw her not merely as a model, but as a muse. She quickly became a favorite of houses like Marc Jacobs, Dior, Dolce & Gabbana, Valentino, and especially Christian Lacroix. One of the most defining moments of her career came when Marc Jacobs released the Stam bag named after her. This was more than an accessory, it was a cultural statement. Stam's influence had transcended the catwalk. She was embedded in the fabric of pop culture itself. Images of her with the bag flooded the streets of New York, Paris, and Tokyo, cementing her as both fashion icon and cultural phenomenon. On the runway, she commanded the spotlight. Whether it was Paris Fashion Week, Milan, or New York, Stam was often chosen to open or close the shows, the most coveted positions reserved for only the most iconic models. She once described the feeling, "It's like standing at the center of the universe, where every gaze is fixed on you, and a single misstep could take everything away." Her presence in editorial spreads was equally magnetic. She graced the covers of Vogue, Harper's Bazaar, W, and Numero. The imagery wasn't always glamorous in the conventional sense. Often, her photos carried a cinematic depth, mysterious and haunting. This distinctive style separated her from peers who embodied a more traditional, sunny version of beauty. Behind the camera, Stam built lasting relationships with fashion's most powerful image makers: Mario Testino, Patrick de Marchelier, and Peter Lindbergh. They valued her for her chameleon-like range, at times as cold as marble, at others heartbreakingly fragile. For them, Stam wasn't just a subject, she was a canvas that absorbed and reflected emotion in unexpected ways. During the mid-negative 2000s, Stam was part of the generation dubbed the Dolls, models with flawless, sculpted features and an otherworldly aura. Within this circle, she stood out for her haunting eyes and enigmatic energy. As critics noted, if Gisele Bündchen embodied explosive glamour, Jessica Stam was the alluring ghost that drew you in before you even realized it. At her peak, Stam earned millions annually, consistently ranked by Forbes among the highest-paid models in the world. She lived a whirlwind existence, crisscrossing continents, immersed in flashing cameras, lavish parties, and lucrative contracts. Yet beneath the glitter, she remained the girl from Kincardine, often confessing to moments of bewilderment at the surreal life she was living. Success, however, carried its own weight. Every show, every campaign brought new pressure. Fashion is an unforgiving world, where a single off moment can dethrone you instantly. Stam understood this truth and developed her trademark icy composure to shield herself on the runway. Her golden years were cinematic, dazzling lights, adoring crowds, iconic campaigns, but beneath it all lay an undercurrent of fragility. She stood on a pedestal others could only dream of, yet knew how precarious that pedestal truly was. Jessica Stam's reign was both dreamlike and dangerous, a perfect embodiment of the intoxicating heights and perilous fragility that define the dark side of fashion. What made Jessica Stam an icon was not just her porcelain doll face or her flawless walk, but her refusal to be molded by the industry. While many of her peers allowed themselves to be shaped into marketable archetypes, the sultry siren, the girl next door, the commercial darling, Stam carved her own path. She cultivated an aura of mystery, maintaining a cool detachment that defied easy categorization. Throughout her career, she turned down lucrative contracts when they conflicted with her personal values. In one interview, she admitted, "If a campaign forced me to be someone I'm not, I'd rather walk away." That uncompromising stance earned her both admiration and criticism. Some praised her integrity, others dismissed her as difficult. The fashion world, notoriously rigid and brimming with stereotypes, often tried to confine Stam into familiar boxes. Creative directors wanted her to smile more, to exude warmth, to embody sex appeal in the traditional sense. Yet Stam resisted. She clung to her signature image, the platinum hair, the vacant yet captivating stare, and the dreamlike detachment that made her unforgettable. In doing so, she challenged an industry where conformity was often rewarded. Stam's strength was not in loud declarations but in subtle defiance, a quiet insistence that a model could define her own identity. This was her true legacy during her prime, not just a face on magazine covers, but a reminder that individuality had a place, even in a world designed to mass-produce beauty. At the height of her fame, Jessica Stam seemed untouchable. She had the contracts, the covers, the runway dominance, everything a model could dream of. Yet beneath the glittering surface, fractures began to appear, the kind of invisible cracks that often signal the beginning of a slow collapse. The relentless pace of the fashion world took its toll. Endless flights between New York, Paris, and Milan, combined with the constant pressure to maintain an impossible physique, left Stam exhausted. Tabloids began publishing photos of her looking pale and fatigued, her once radiant aura dimmed by dark circles and a hollow frame. Whispers circulated. Was the living doll breaking down? Her private life became another battlefield. Stam's relationships with rock musicians and high-profile businessmen quickly became tabloid fodder. Every breakup was amplified into melodrama, stripping her of the privacy she desperately craved. For someone who had always balanced on the edge between mystery and exposure, this constant intrusion was suffocating. Rumors of late-night parties and indulgence in New York's glitzy social scene further fueled the narrative. Stam never confirmed nor denied, but her once pristine image began to blur. Campaigns were quietly withdrawn, and some major houses put their collaborations on hold. In fashion, perception is everything, and the perception was shifting. Compounding this was the industry's insatiable hunger for novelty. A new wave of models, fresher, younger, and more experimental, began to dominate. Stam's ethereal, doll-like persona, once her greatest strength, suddenly felt repetitive. What once made her a phenomenon was now seen as predictable. The cruel irony of fashion had come for her. The very qualities that made her special were now the reasons she was being replaced. Attempts at reinvention fell flat. Though she took on projects to revive her image, they lacked the impact of her golden era. Slowly, she receded from the spotlight, her absence sparking speculation. Fashion journalists asked, "What happened to Jessica Stam?" A phrase that quietly underscored her fading relevance. Rather than fighting desperately to hold on to fame, Stam chose retreat. She returned to a quieter life, investing in small business ventures, reconnecting with her family, and exploring life outside the relentless fashion circuit. But with every step away from the runway, her name slipped further from the cultural consciousness. Unlike some of her peers, her decline wasn't marked by a spectacular scandal or catastrophic fall. Instead, it was a gradual fading, like a sunset swallowed by night. And perhaps that made it even more haunting. Jessica Stam was not destroyed by a single mistake. She was consumed by the very mechanics of the industry itself, by the eternal demand for the next big thing. In rare interviews during her retreat, Stam spoke candidly. "I lived a life most people only dream of, but there are always prices to pay. When the lights go out, that's when you finally see who you are." It was a sobering reflection, tinged with both pride and melancholy. Her disappearance from fashion's front lines was less an explosion than an erosion. Slowly, quietly, the girl who once defined an era became an echo. And in that echo lies one of fashion's most unsettling truths. Icons are not only born, they are forgotten, often faster than we realize. Jessica Stam's story embodies not just triumph but also fragility, a reminder of the precarious balance at the heart of beauty and fame. In her decline, we glimpse the dark side of fashion in its most chilling form, not the scandalous collapse, but the cold indifference of an industry that always looks forward, never back. Today, Jessica Stam's name may not dominate magazine covers or runway rosters, but for those who witnessed the golden age of the 2000s, she remains unforgettable. Her porcelain face, icy blue eyes, and dreamlike aura etched themselves into the visual memory of a generation that lived through the twilight of the 90-second supermodels and the rise of a new fashion order. Her greatest legacy lies in the way she reclaimed control over her image. Stam refused to bend entirely to the dictates of the industry. She did not chase easy trends, nor did she dilute her identity to please the masses. Instead, she embodied the idea that a model could be more than a mannequin, that individuality could thrive even within an industry obsessed with uniformity. By walking that fine line between muse and mystery, Stam became a silent but powerful voice for creative freedom. Her defiance, subtle yet firm, carved a place for models who wished to define themselves rather than be defined. The lingering question remains: if Jessica Stam were to begin her career today, in a more diverse, more open era, would she have endured longer, shining brighter than before? Perhaps. Or perhaps her story was always destined to be fleeting, a reminder that beauty in fashion often comes with fragility. What is certain is that her name still resonates. Jessica Stam endures as a spectral presence, a haunting echo of the catwalk, reminding us that even within the brilliance of fashion, the shadows never disappear.